Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the DesignerCon 2022 main stage, presented by our friends over at Sony Pictures Animation. Got a panel of interesting folks up here where we're going to talk more about Web3, but how it also interacts with the physical space, some digital conversation, just sort of where this whole area is going with people that are involved in different areas. I'd like to start with who's closest with me, Mr. Jeff Staple. Nice to meet you, sir. How you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
As a very celebrated graphic designer, I'm sure you've heard this so many times because you've had the touch with brands. Clients are like, we want it to be iconic. But you and I both know as fellow designers, the culture makes icons. You can set a client up to succeed, but the culture has to do the rest. When we're going into this new space, how do you see the next level of icons are going to be made in the Web3 space? Like, where do you see all of this going where eventually there will be that level of icons and things that almost everybody can identify with as this new genre of art?
Wow, that's a great question. You are absolutely right, and I wholeheartedly agree with you that, like, as creatives and designers, we can put all of our effort into making something really dope, beautiful, timeless, but you get it to the 80-yard line, and then after that, the community decides that this is a classic, this is time. Like, the pigeon dunk wasn't a classic shoe because I said it was going to be a classic shoe.
Right.
I could have said it, but it wouldn't have mattered, right? Yeah. So yes, I agree with that. In Web3, I think it's almost like the aspect of the community claiming what's going to be classic is even more than 20%. It might be like 75%, where like right out of the gate, the community is involved in the creation process, design process, the release process, everything. So, but because they have the control, they're also responsible for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's the real game changer for Web3 and NFTs.
I think you're absolutely right, because when we see people sort of evaluate what's happened in the digital space, the three things that are always considered: who's the group that's building this, who's the artist, but how big is the Discord? How big of a community they have? And it's become a very, very community-based industry. And so for Hadrian, for you and the carnival, it was like you guys had all of the characters, and that's fun, and that's getting people involved, and they're buying, and we'll get into that. But then with the carnival, you're like, we got to give people a place to celebrate this and enjoy this, correct?
Correct. So what we're doing here is, basically like activations. We want people to have fun, because Carrefour is colorful. So we want people to be happy, have fun with the families. Not only, I want to introduce that Web3 is not only for adults, but kids can have fun too. In so many ways, with the characters, the dolls, the plushies, games. Even though the game's probably not connected with the carnival itself, but it's one package. So it's all about how to build your community, make your own brand, and
I mean, this scene is so early, and we just had Vivi up here, and we're talking about, their CEOs, like, you guys don't even realize what early adopters that you are. And because this is so community-based, it's fun to see what you're doing to give people a way to celebrate it. And for people that don't get it, it's like, it's just people having fun. They're finding a new thing to get into. Tommy, with you, I know that you guys have worked really, really hard on the variable NFTs, right? Like, you create a character, you make all these attributes, we don't know exactly what we're going to get. That has made shopping fun for people again, right? It's fun to buy when you're trying to kind of almost gamble on what you're getting.
Actually, for me, I've been making shoes for like 8 years. And then I launched my NFT collection in March for like 520. And what I'm doing is creating like a physical empire. And I'm trying to connect virtual and reality, and really getting the people to understand what a digital collectible is through a physical product. Yeah, so my booth is at 3422. I mean, you guys can come check it out, how I transition from Web 2 to Web 3 and using shoe and sneakers as a story, yeah.
For you, Jeff, you've had so much success in design, but there's limitations by clients, by printing. There's all these different restrictions and restraints. What are you excited about the limitation or the unlimited limitations in the digital space that have sort of scaled you back before in the real world.
Yeah, I mean, 2022 is actually the 25th anniversary of Staples. So
That's
I've been
amazing.
doing this for
Congrats.
2.5 decades. And the limitations that you mentioned are 100% true. Like, the things that I've been doing in the NFT space in 1 year surpassed the things that I've been able to do in the physical world for 2.5 decades. It's crazy. Like, the things that, the Artifact guys and us did together with having a meta pigeon AR in real life, and then you could have them virtually on your foot, and then you forge it for a real thing, which then gets you access into Takashi Murakami's world. Like, that's just like science fiction stuff that we couldn't ever do before. But now, even hearing your story about what the utility of what you're doing is gonna happen is like, I'm like racing to process everything, And it's crazy because we did, meta pigeons became clones. You guys made a clone of a clone, and then you guys made a shoe that they just showed me that can be on a clone in the digital world that you can then get in the physical world. Like, it's like Inception. My mind was like, like looping up, yeah. But that's the power of this community, that like anything goes. It's kind of like if you were scripting like your own Marvel Cinematic Universe. You could just make it up from like Iron Man 1 all the way to Shang-Chi. You could just create your own world now,
Well, you're perfectly illustrating, like, I love how punk rock it is. Like, the rules are getting written and broken and rewritten over and over again. But what you're talking about, too, it's going so fast that I love the idea of digital experiences like the Vincents that we have Kevin and Franlation here to talk about, where they're kind of giving people, and we've talked about this a lot this weekend, that half step, right? Like, to just ease their way into it. And so for you, Kevin, and Franlation, I know you guys are excited that taking DCon in that space means DCon now has the ability to entertain all throughout the year.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to do is, with the Vincent's digital membership. That way we can have the community, we can communicate with them directly and do different things for them with our different access and benefits for them. Like I know a lot of people weren't there earlier in the morning, so make sure you check out our booth right here by the stage with a lot of benefits. The first of all will be having access to DesignerCon next year. Every membership, every Vincent's purchase will get you automatically weekend pass to 2023. So when this idea first came around, why Fran is here was he's been in this space. He's been a collector for all his life, and I've known him for a long time, from physical goods to trading cards. So I hit him up. I said, what do you think of this idea that we have this great convention, this amazing community that we have here, and we want to use this Web3 technology to build upon that? And Frank gave me some amazing advice, and we're here.
Yeah, a lot of people here are used to the blind box physical toys, and really the Vincent's gives that same experience with a digital collectible that adds that utility. There's amazing one-of-ones in the collection with people like Jeff, and just that excitement of opening up a collectible and not exactly knowing what you're going to get. All the traits that you can have with any Web3 project. It's just a perfect fit, and no better place than DCon to mint your first digital collectible. So yeah.
And you're so right. As adults, we have to spend so much adult money, utilities, health insurance, all the stuff that's not fun to spend money on, right? But a blind box, buying something like that, it makes shopping fun again, right? You get a little rush as well as a product. So that's what's always drawn me to that. Hadrian, for you, it's an interesting dynamic in Web3, where some of the characters that you all have done are like ultra realistic, right? Like with the mega 3D sculpts and all the different variables and stuff. Let's talk a little bit about how in that world, it's super fun to go as realistic as possible, even though it's a very unrealistic character and platform.
Okay, so I think I want to start by saying that Karafuru, we're building the IP itself. So we're making, I don't know whether I'm supposed to say this, but we're making the animations right now, a bit of alpha. We're making the animations, so there will be a lot that we're going to do for Karafuru itself. That's why from 2D, we have the 3D, and obviously you know where it's going. It's just having so many different characters and the brand name itself, it opens up all the different possibilities that you can have.
It's awesome. And Tommy, for you being a sneaker designer, right? There's so much industrial design that goes into the aesthetic design of sneakers.
Wait, sorry, can you say the question again?
Yes, I was waiting for you to,
I was trying to figure out a mic.
Yeah, I was waiting for that. So I was going to say for you, for being a sneaker designer, real world design, it's about fashion, but there's also a lot of industrial design in there. Like a shoe has to do certain functions to be successful. So you have that discipline in your mindset. How are you carrying that mindset over into Web3?
I think right now I want my community to become the designer instead of just me being the designer. Because I feel like,
source.
Yeah, I feel like for Web3, community can shift the brand. Like I said, there's really you cannot follow a roadmap anymore because Web3 is moving too fast. But as long as you have the right playbook, then just let the community decide. I think same as customer come first.
Yeah.
That's what the community is for.
Jeff, you had an amazing run from the mid-2000s to 2020, right? Like you've touched so many different major brands, doing fucking awesome projects with all of them. You're sitting at home during 2020, feels like the world's fucking falling apart. What did you take from that moment as somebody who was such a visionary from the middle of the 20s to 19? What did you take from that? You're like, okay, there's a new set of rules, and I got to start applying that to this next decade. I would love to know, because you were a visionary in the last decade.
I appreciate that compliment, but I didn't have the vision. You know what I did? I listened to 3 knuckleheads named Benoit, Clegg Effects, and Zaptio, and I believed them, and I listened to this dude sitting next to me who was preaching about it too. And by the way, Fran used to be y'all sitting there in the back row, in the back of the line, and now he's on stage. That's Web3 right there,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
That's the story. And so to me, what I was registering was that there was a shift in who was making moves in the culture. And I could have been like a gatekeeper, like an old head that was like, nah, fuck this shit. It's all about the real, but I was like, no, they're saying something legitimate here, and I'm gonna be the student now, and I'm gonna actually listen to these Artifact guys and these Zora guys and Gary V and V Friends guys, and I'm gonna let them take the reins for a minute. And then it became a collaboration. Then it became, well, let me tell you what I've learned from the past few years in making clothes, making shoes, and let's now churn together. And I think that's the beauty. I don't think Meta Pigeons would have been Meta Pigeons if it was Artifact alone or if it was Staple alone. It was the combination that made that what it is.
And see, I love that you're being humble about your success, but you did say something very visionary in there. When we were all at home, I'm gonna fight you on this one. I'm going to make you say you're an icon whether you want to or not. But no, you're making something serious, though. When we were all sitting at home, everybody was stuck. Everybody, for a first time in a long time, was at the exact same space. And entertainment, social, it did become a moment of empowerment. Everybody's going live. People are making a green screen or filming from home. And you're absolutely right. That was a moment when community really, really shined and remind you where you're at. And that is an exciting part about this, is the empowerment of my man, Fran, from the back to the stage. And we're seeing that. People are realizing that community is the most important thing any artist, any entertainment industry can have. Your community has all of the secrets for your success if you're just not so big-headed to actually listen to what they're saying, right? So, Fran, what do we do next? You got all the answers? Steer us, big man.
Yeah, so as far as next, I think like everyone up here has already been saying, building out their community. I think that's one of the biggest driving forces of Web3 is, everyone interacting. There's events where people meet up, all this, utility from their NFTs to actually meet and in a lot of cases form lifelong friendships. There's people I met in this space just because we were at the same event or in the same line, and now, we're going to other events and everything like this. So yeah, I think the community aspect is like the biggest driving force to me. And you know, right now the market may be down a little bit, and people might be a little nervous to enter because of that. But at the end of the day, if you're you know, in it for the community and the collectability, I think it's, you know, no worries or anything like that. So
that's sick. Hadrian, with you, it's like you guys have been so good at world building, creating these characters. They're all very different, but they all match. Do you see eventually where you're going? It'll become an entertainment space?
Definitely. I would say definitely.
It feels like it's all kind of pointing in that direction, my man.
It is. So obviously, you know, our biggest goal is going to be global IP brand. So we're working towards that. Obviously, we want to become the next Disney, you know, Pokemon, Marvel, whatever it is. But, you know, we'll get there.
Yeah. Do you think that the step along the way, though, is like what Jeff's talking about and Fran about community, is that if you're building a story that represents the audience that is actively a part of it, you've already got asses in seats, as they say in the traditional entertainment industry, right? Like, if you build it with those people and it's their voice, they're already on board with that platform or that project is.
Yeah. So obviously, we're gonna keep building our community and stuff. We'll listen to them, obviously, and we're not gonna be here without our community. What is a project without the community, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have another serious question. Where the hell does that 4-story inflatable live on Monday?
Well, it's not even our biggest balloon. We have 3 big balloons.
That's not the big balloon?
That's not. That's the medium size. We have the bigger one supposed to float on the water, and the other one is flying. But obviously, I can only ship one, so there it is.
I am impressed. That's the medium one.
I want to see the flying one in here.
Yeah. Let's fly that over Anaheim next year.
He just told me next year.
Next year? Can't wait to see it. Speaking of next year, Kevin, how do you see, because like right now we have sort of the Web3 corner over here. How do you see that area transforming when we're all back here next December?
Well, I think like with the Vincent's project itself, what we're seeing is next year's the ticketing might be different for some people that come through. It might not be a barcode. You could have your Vincent, and it will give you access. So there might be some people by the door where you just tap, and at the same time, those Vincents are one-of-one artwork, right? And right here, we have Jeff from Stapleverse, and he's a friend of Vincent. We have Fran, he's a friend of Vincent. We have Hadrian, he's a friend of Vincent. We have Tommy, he's a friend of Vincent. The possibilities are endless. We have 12 months to build, to come up with amazing things for our attendees next year. I feel like it's gonna grow more than that. Like last year we had Vivi.
Yeah.
One company.
Yeah.
One company that made a noise, right? And this year we have Vivi, who's, I heard there's a lot of people there that's in front of our 3XP section, but there we have Lemon, we have the Remake, we have, Carrefour, Clone X LA community, we have all these projects there, like Dented Fields. All these guys weren't here yet last year, just 12 months ago.
Yeah.
So I think within 12 months, we will see a lot of changes, but I think it's for the better. And, Anaheim is here, and I feel like we can still grow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if Disney can't fill out the space, let's give them a shot, right? Let's do it. Let's be the first. Jeff, you're a designer's designer in that you understand culture, but you understand clients. And I understand it's not always easy to bring those two worlds together. We've seen companies like Vivi be successful in this space because they brought Disney into digital. And with Disney, they bring those fans that then learn who Frank Kozik or Tara McPherson or someone like yourself is. What do you think that this world needs to do to be able to win some of the battles that you won with working with so many respectful consumer products and experiential entertainment groups that you were able to match clients' needs with what the culture wanted?
Yeah, I think trust is going to be a big one, right? Like, you think about terms like non-disclosure agreements, confidentiality agreements, non-competes. These are standard things that you have to do when you begin working with big brands or big clients. And those, you never hear those words spoken in Web3. Like, no, Web3 is like open source, WAGMI, we all gonna make it, share everything, right? And so if you're trying to link the world of NFT digital assets and Web3 with the world of like traditional brands, they're gonna naturally be scared. And I think that what they're gonna look to is trusted sources. And now, frankly, because of what we're going through in current times with crypto and NFT, their guard is going to be even more up. They're going to be like, wow, I don't care if you had a special on 60 Minutes and if Oprah interviewed you, you still might rug us, you know, like, so I think it's people like myself, I think that like have a history that like, no, I might trust Staple more than I trust some of these other people because he might not be the Web3 native expert, but I trust that if Staple's getting involved, it's probably a legitimate thing, you know, so, but like I said, I think it's all about linking the world that we came from, the networks that we have, and then the learnings that we've been doing in Web3, and I say all of us are learning, you know, like, Stapleverse is not even 12 months old yet, you know, MetaPigeons is 1 year old. We're all just like 1 year in and we're still learning. So even if you haven't formed a crypto wallet yet or you haven't even gotten your first NFT, you're still pretty much at the same level that we are, you know, like you can be at our level like in a couple of YouTube videos and hearing a few podcasts and Discords, and like you could be right up on where we're learning.
You're so right about that trust, though, because, you know, I had Vivi on the stage earlier, and I had the audience, I go, you know, raise your hand if it was a IP that brought you into digital for the first time. And a lot of those hands were up. And I said, but then did you buy something from an artist you had never heard before, you know? And I think you're so right. It is that trust factor, because for me, you know, I know about all the different big brands, but a lot of these artists are my friends. And when I see Jermaine Rogers get involved and Frank Kozik, I'm like, those are dudes that I trust. They've been good mentors throughout my life of pop culture. I can trust them. So you're absolutely right. It's like, it's about who brings you to the party, right?
I mean, one more example of that is we just did a collaboration with Gutter Cat Gang, which is a born and bred Web3 brand, right? And so I think our audience, the Staple audience, was like, what is Gutter Cat Gang? And they're learning about that, which is great because that's the transition into their world. I think Gutter Cat Gang members are like, oh, I might have heard something about Staple or Jeff Staple, but is he really down for Web3? And they're like, oh, he really is. So it's like that sharing that goes on, you know?
Fran, what would you suggest to other community members of, like, you know, your transformation of being a you know, I hate the term fan, but being a traditional fan to now being a collaborator and sort of somebody that everybody really looks up to you? How would you suggest to other people that are actively involved in making the transition that you made?
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's trying to get into this space, one of the best ways to learn, I spend almost all day in Twitter Spaces. It's just like this panel, only you could be, you know, at home listening in and just learning.
Right.
You know, that's the first step is, you know, there's a lot of terms like you were saying, like WAGB and all this stuff, and people don't understand what's going on. And so really just, you know, jumping in, whether it's YouTube videos, Twitter Spaces, and just you know, learning little by little. But yeah, it's a fun space, and people very giving of their time. I found just reaching out, people are, you know, very willing to answer questions and everything like this. So it's a very open space.
You make up a good point too, that the thing about Twitter Space is different than a traditional podcast interview, which I've done for the last 10 years, is that people show up, they're guarded, they know that it's recorded, they talk in a certain way. Spaces are just kind of loose. It's temporary content. It's a conversation. Everybody's at home working. It makes the day go by faster. And it gives you the ability to hop in there and say something and maybe connect with somebody that you've been following for a while, right?
Yeah, 100%. And also just growing your audience too. Whether it is you jumping up on stage or just listening in, it's a great way to network. Maybe you're gonna, you know, find someone for the very first time and, you know, get into their project or maybe learn from them. So it's a great way to network in general.
And I know the guys on the stage could probably agree, where you find these people in your community, right, that are super, like, active. And you go, that might be a good person to help me out with this task, because they already get it. They're obviously a good writer or a good listener. And so, Kevin, do you see that with guys like Fran, where it's like, this dude's so active that we got to find a way to get him off the bench and in the game?
So that's exactly what happens. You know, Fran was very early on crypto as well. So in like you asked Jeff, what what he did in 2020. We actually talked a little bit in 2020 with Jeff, but Fran was like, you want to learn about crypto? He got me into crypto in 2020. And from that, he introduced me to actually Vivi. But what's a funny story was he introduced me to Vivi, but they actually came to our door in late February 2020. And I looked at the beta app. I'm like, why would someone pay for this?
Mm-hmm.
That was my question then. But through 2020 and learning more about Web3 and all that, now my question is, why wouldn't you buy this?
Right.
So for me this is like within our community, like these guys has 1 year old. Our Vincent's is 3 days old. We're 3 days old. We looked to our community. We started a Discord. We understand our audience are here once a year. That's when we talk to them the most. So we have our community manager who's super active on other Discord, but he's also a fellow artist. So he's now our community manager, right? And for Fran, when I found him, I talked to him because he's always onto the new thing. He would tell me and break down his thoughts, and I would be like, this is the guy that I need to talk to. When I literally look at all their projects or what they've done, all the guys here, and I asked Fran, well, what if we do this with DesignerCon? What do you think? Would people love it? Would people be, would it make sense? To me, it made sense. And he told me, he texted me right away. He's like, yes, it makes perfect sense.
And I mean, the fun part about this moment is if we guess wrong, we have the ability to edit, right? It's not like we made a movie and you can't get all those copies back and be like, we need to add a scene in here or delete something out that didn't age too well. Like, the rules are constantly being written and broken over and over again. I think kind of a great analogy to all of this is something that Jeff did with his career. When people start asking you to put your icon on their item, like the pigeon on a pair of shoes or other brands you worked with, a lot of designers look at that and be like, that's what I want to do. But you don't start there, right? There's a long, windy road until Nike's like, yeah, we want you on our product. And I kind of see all of this on that same road of trust, of the technology makes sense, the consumer can believe in it. And I'd like for you just to speak about that journey just a little bit, because so many people look at that finish line and they go, I want to get there, or I want to do that, but it's such a windy road to navigate to get to that rarefied air that you're in.
Yeah. You brought up a great point just now. The advantage of digital assets and NFTs is that you can edit at any time.
Yep.
The double-edged sword of that is that if you only create with the ability to constantly edit, you never know what it was like to execute where there's no changes allowed after that. And like, I just put out a book, right? And when you print a book and you made a mistake, you can't edit the book.
No, it's done.
But what that makes you do is it makes you quadruple check, read it, have 10 of your trusted friends like, yo, make sure this is good, versus like, yo, just ship it, it's fine, we could change it later, you know, or delete the tweet or whatever, you know. So I think there's a certain craft and care in the old school world that is missing in the new school world. And I think if you can exhibit that level of attention to detail and that attention to craft in the digital product that you do, it's going to be remarkably shocking to the community. And they'll feel it. They'll be like, whoa, this feels deep and different and detailed, and there's consideration here. And then I think, to your point, like the bigger brands, like the Nikes of the world, whoever, they're going to recognize that, no, this is a real player, they really care, versus like a fly-by-night quick project.
Right. And you bring up a good point. Like, this is a multi-generational experience, right? I happen to be Generation X, which forever was looked at as a letter. But I now look at X as a crossroad in the street. I am the first generation of new technology, but I'm the last generation of the old work ethic, right? And so we're coming together like, well, you got to hard work, you got to pay your dues, and then there's all these young cats that have only ever known fast technology. But the thing is we're building a world right now for 10-year-olds that know everything virtual. Design is a language that they speak on their iPads. They've always wanted virtual coins to build into a world. So we're bringing in a lot of old world work ethic. You guys in the middle are just running fast, but all this is really being built for 10-year-olds today. That's our customer that we're talking about right there. Those lovely ladies in the front row, like that's where all of this is heading, and I'm so excited to see where it goes and what each one of you play a part in that. Kevin, Tommy, Hadrian, Fran, Jeff, thank you so much for having this conversation. Let's make some noise for our panelists.